Welcome to the Nightly Rant
with
your hosts, Mike
and Torya.
This is the show where we examine society from a sarcastic point of view.
If you like insane conversations, this is definitely the show for you.
Let's get into today's topic. YPN people, I don't know about you, but I love helping out a friend. That's why I want to shout out my friend Brian Little and his podcast, Your Favorite Blockhead. This is the only show that manages to weave together peanuts and MMA into one heck of an amazing podcast. You can find Your Favorite Blockhead wherever your favorite podcasts reside and at yourfavoriteblockhead.com. Do me a huge favor and listen to Brian's show. You'll be entertained and you'll help out a friend. Now, as I said, let's get into today's topic. So, I always thought that being a teacher was a really, really, really tough job. But after today and what I read, it's not a job anyone should be doing. Trust me.
My mom used to talk all the time about the verbally abusive ninth graders that she had and how awful they were. And she was like, Victoria, don't go to school to be a teacher. What did I do? I went to school to be a teacher. Lasted 2 whole years. Nope. Nobody wants anything to do with that.
But that's not even the worst of it. There's this news story out of France, and a teacher apparently showed like a cartoon of the Prophet Muhammad. And while apparently someone didn't like that very much, you want to know what they did to this teacher?
What?
They cut her head off.
Isn't that the second time this has happened, though? I swore this happened before. Maybe it was a news agency that had a comic of Muhammad and he got his head cut off. Speaking of people's heads being removed, you let a guest onto our podcast again.
I know. Do you know we've only had 2 actual guests in the year 2020. That's the kind of dismal year this 2020 has been. We haven't even cared to advertise for guests. Like literally, we have not cared. But here we are.
At least you picked this guy. I like this guy. He can come back anytime. It's Brian.
Fire on the mountain, run boys run, 2-on-1, 5-on-1. My mustard gas will have you calling 911. You didn't even know what was coming at this point because YFB has very different attire tonight, mostly out of complacency. But, I've had a half day and had a chance to come in and get reared up for your show. But you're right, Mike. There are plenty of educators that have had to stand on the wall of shame. I had to watch it personally. I had to watch it from afar. And it makes it hard sometimes to defend the profession. But I'll say it now. Somebody's got to do it. Second of all, I actually do like these kids most of the time. And the weird thing is when they're not supposed to like me, they like me more. It's totally Murphy's Law that happens with my world. But in the meantime, mostly, it's been an interesting year to say the least. But it's nice to be back on the Nightly Rant Hour.
Glad to have you back, but you make me think of something. My son is a junior in high school. And every year he has something to say about his teachers. Every year. It's natural, right? I think he has 7 different teachers, and he will like some. He doesn't really dislike any, but he'll like some more than others, and he'll start making fun of something strange that they do. And I thought, oh man, this distance learning thing is going to mess with that. That's not going to happen. Oh no. Now it's, this teacher, she went to share something on her screen, and instead it was like photos of her dog, and she's going on and on and on talking about the lesson, but it was like photos of her dog on the screen, and everyone's laughing, and and they're making fun of her later and all this stuff. And I'm like, yeah, but it's I want to know what you would have said if it had not been distance learning. You'd been in front of her, and she flips it up on the screen behind her and looks away and starts talking, because she wouldn't know that it was on behind her any more than she noticed. I want to know how she didn't notice that being broadcast to the whole class were her photos of her dog.
Maybe she did it to make sure that they were paying attention.
Yeah, there are so many nightmares that have circulated since we've had the online learning. There's a guy that I follow. If you need a good chuckle, this is a shameless plug. His name is Eddie B. The guy will put up like what teachers really want to say about things. Like, for instance, online learning, when you have the full thing, this is his actual response. I don't know either. Exclamation point. Reply all. That's my answer to everyone. Or if you're going to have your kid on virtual learning, can you make sure you stay out of the frame so your dad bod doesn't pass all these other kids watching as I'm trying to teach a lesson? You discard your kid for life and all these other 20 that are in the Zoom with me. So it's one after the other at this point. But it's been interesting. I'll tell you one of mine, actually. This has been a tool I've had for years. Since you want to mention things that they can poke fun of and talk about, you know how many kids have gone home and said, Mr. Little has a bathroom pass that's unlike any other bathroom pass. I make them take a plunger to the bathroom. I'm not kidding you. If they want to go to the restroom, they have to swallow their pride and have to take the plunger with them. So we know who my kids are. It's glorious. You find out, in other words, I don't want to take that. Well, then you certainly don't have to go bad enough, do you? And eventually, about the 9th week, they get past it and they go, fine, whatever.
I'm going to lock our bathroom. I'm going to keep the key. And then you're going to have to come here and get the key off. That's going to be hanging off of a plunger to the bathroom from now on.
I rest my case.
You can try me.
Actually, I don't really want that.
Any ideas in his brain there, Torya. This is classroom management 101. But that everybody's got their own little spin on how they do things. When you have your room, you have to be who you are. It's fine to use your own personal photos of your dog. It's just funny how, that's our trying to keep up with technology that surpasses us, or us surpassing technology. It's interesting how this year has worked. But once again, I've had to do both simultaneously. So doing in-person and online, plus all the other extra, let's just say Wife B's been juggling a lot of balls, and I've dropped a lot of them along the way and picked them back up and tried to keep going. It's just survival one day at a time. There's really another way to put it.
Juggling balls.
2020 is kicking your ass just as hard as it's kicking everybody else's, huh?
Yeah, if you want me to be a little more descriptive, okay, I'm referring to actual juggling of elastic balls. Okay, if you want to play that one, all right. You're looking for a way for me to drop some profanity, and you haven't got it out of me yet. Maybe one day you'll succeed, but this ain't the day.
I feel like I'm gonna have to make you really mad.
You did say elastic balls. That's kind of interesting. I've never seen an elastic ball.
I didn't say anything about
I've seen plastic balls. I've seen rubber balls. I've seen men's balls, but I've never seen elastic balls. That's interesting. But
how about sweaty elastic balls?
Tired teacher rhetoric.
You're talking about Torya. You're talking about getting your ass kicked, and one of the reasons why I wanted to invite Brian on the show was because of the most incredible knockout that I've ever seen. So you got this guy, Joaquin Buckley. He looks like, I don't know. He's a cut up dude, and he's fighting this guy. I love his name, Impa Kasangane. And he does the typical, here I'm going to come and I'm going to kick you in the gut. And so he goes to kick the guy, and the guy grabs his right leg, grabs his right leg, or maybe it was his left leg. I don't know. It was a leg. And the next thing, the guy's like, oh, he grabbed my foot. What the heck am I going to do? Bam! He kicks him with the other foot in the back of the head. Now, the other guy's reaction was priceless because he literally went to sleep on his feet, stiff as a board, and fell backwards onto the mat. So it was pretty intense. And I've probably watched a video snippet of it like 25 times just because I'm amazed by two things. I'm amazed that he could think of it that quickly, which I suppose he's a trained fighter. He probably would have thought of that quickly anyway. But the part that was amazing is that not only could he execute the move, which if I tried, I'd probably have a broken leg because I'd fall to the ground. But not only did he execute the move, but he landed the move and knocked the guy out with the move. And I mean, I haven't looked it up, but has the guy said anything about, it was a lucky kick or anything like that? Has he talked any smack about it?
As far as I can tell, there's not any negative banter between Buckley and his opponent. It looks like it's pretty cordial at this point. I guess, first of all, Torya, I'm sorry that he's opened Pandora's box here, but second of all, I'm thrilled that we have a official fan of mixed martial arts now, that you've joined us and you are part of the MMA community now because you're watching UFC. That makes me super happy. My phone has blown up more about this fight than any other event since I have been a fan. I am not kidding you. You aren't the only one that reached out to me about this. how I will have to kind of put the brakes on just for a second and say this, because once again, good for Buckley for his spectacular knockout of the night. Sanhagen had a kick that was a knockout of the night too, but not as fantastic as this one was. I want to kind of go through some things and kind of break it up into parts here because there's so many moving parts. As far as that goes, knockout of the night, I'm with you. Possible knockout of the year, I hardly see anybody that's going to, in the next 2 months, who could possibly rival that. So possible knockout of the year, sure, I'm thinking that. Greatest knockout of all time. The jury is still out with your favorite Blockhead, and right now I've actually got plenty of, as a historian of this sport, at least as far back as it's gone, I can come to you and say that this is a perfect example of how short-term of a memory everybody from the athletes to the owner to the fans have when it comes to the sport. Because I went quickly and looked at Buckley's background. I went to SureDog just in my resources and said, okay, he had a fairly average career in Bellator, came over to the UFC, and he was coming off of a loss from a local Fort Worth fighter from around here by the name of Kevin Holland. So he's coming in, but all of a sudden you have this moment where this is something that gets practiced in the gym often. And could it land? Sure. Just like if you're laying on your back and you've got a guy over the top of you, and if he wants to go in to try to do ground and pound, you can do a up kick and you can catch the guy and knock him out. These have happened before in entities like pride fighting or even one championship. A lot of them have happened.
Right.
But I say that just because I'm on the fence about how when people come to me and say greatest knockout of all time, this is where I go, how quickly are we forgetting that knockout looked even similar to a time when Rich Franklin knocked out a guy named Nate Quarry. I mean, it wasn't the same spectacular where you're caught on one leg. It's kind of like he had enough distance on him. Usually, if you try to get a kick like that, it's because the guy's trying to do a single leg takedown on you. He's got enough room. He can move back a little bit, give him some distance, and he can attempt it. It doesn't happen often. So good for Buckley to pull this off. This is, again, it's spectacular. And I don't take away from him in any way. What I do say is for casual fans and for people that are following the sport, I go, how quickly are we forgetting that we had a 5-second knockout from Jorge Masvidal on Ben Askren not long ago? I don't know any other time where there's been a flying knee where the guys that are commentating are saying this fight of the night is brought to you by, and it's already over. How quickly we forget this one. How quickly we forget a front-face knockout from Anderson Silva to Vitor Belfort. How quickly we going to forget there was this last-second knockout between two guys named Yair Rodriguez and Korean Zombie, where at the last second of the fight, spin around elbow shot, and he's down. You're never going to see the timing of that ever happen in the sport. It's just when you have followed it as long as I have, having this long-term memory and also being very photographic that I have, and I think in timelines here, this is a double-edged sword for me. It's a blessing and it's a curse because I want to celebrate with y'all on Buckley. I'll give you fight of the night. I'll give you KO of possibly the year, but I'm still going, it's possible. I would certainly put this right now in the top 10 of all time, but I'm still going, what exactly are you looking for when you say greatest knockout of all time? Was it spectacular? Of course. I mean, we're all talking about it, and nobody has blown up my phone as much as they have since this happened. And that's kind of where we are today.
So here's what I think about when you say all that. First of all, you're quite opinionated about this. I like that. But second of all, do you remember the game Mortal Kombat?
Yes.
Okay. So you mentioned what's going to take in the next 2 months for someone to beat that. I think it's going to take. I remember the first time I played Mortal Kombat and the guy ripped my head off and showed it to me and my whole spine came out and he threw me on the ground. It's pretty much going to take something like that in the next 2 months to ruffle anyone's feathers. Okay. But I have to agree with you. I did a little bit of research about other crazy knockouts and, I have to agree with you. I mean, I think just from the boxing perspective, and I think we've guaranteed that Torya is just going to sit there, smile and look pretty and keep changing her name. But other than that, yeah, I think, we've pretty much guaranteed that. But I
do like the rhetoric war between the both of you on this one. That's interesting.
I think it's it reminds me of when Mike Tyson was at his prime and there'd be all this hype about, oh my gosh, here's the other funny part about it. Oh my gosh, it's, Friday night, Mike Tyson, there's a pay-per-view. Oh, I'm not paying for that. I'm not paying $39 for that pay-per-view. He's going to be done in 2 seconds, and literally that's what he would do. He'd get in the ring and bam, good night. The person would be done in 2 seconds. Well, the reason I say it's kind of funny is because, how much do these fights cost nowadays? And they're not even close to the caliber of boxers that you had back then, and we were complaining about, $39. And I know things have gone up in cost, but they haven't doubled. And yet that has doubled. But here's my thought on that. You get two guys together who are fierce warriors, and crazy stuff like this is bound to happen. It could have happened the reverse.
Absolutely.
I really think so. Because again, like I make fun, and when we were chatting early before the show, I make fun of, oh, how the heck did he think of it? But I mean, I know he's trained for that moment. That is not, it's kind of like, okay, when I used to play baseball, and you're playing shortstop, and you get a ball on the ground, you bare hand pick it up and in one motion toss it to the second baseman, but to throw the guy out at second base. It's just something you practice and practice and practice and practice.
Sure.
But you might get 3 times a season that you can actually pull that off. If you're lucky. This was his moment. And imagine, now let's play a game here. Imagine what happens if he misses the kick. I mean, would you think
nobody's talking about him the next day?
Yeah, I mean, do you think it's a high-risk move to do that?
It was certainly a high-risk move. Also, especially for injury. Yeah, coming down on your ankle like that in full force the way that you do.
Yeah.
And like I agree with you what you're saying. This is not you and I butting heads or having to come to a compromise. This is just if somebody were to come around in December, let's say we get to December and somehow Conor McGregor and Dustin Poirier happen to be on the card. Okay, and I can tell you why that could happen, or it could be until January. I'll share that in a minute. But let's just say somehow Dustin Poirier decides to run up on the cage and do a Superman punch. Out goes Conor McGregor. Is anybody going to be talking about Buckley when that happens?
No.
And that means, and did Poirier just kind of decide out of nowhere, oh, I'm going to go run on the cage and try something spectacular? That is a move that they do over and over and over and over. You think Jorge Masvidal had to just decide he's going to go out and knee him? You know how many times he probably practiced that knee in secret before he walked out and delivered it to Ben Askren the way he did? That even though it was anyway, go ahead.
Are you saying that who you knock out with an amazing knockout like that matters?
I think it comes down to when you have the buildup. I think when you say somebody that matters, I think it depends on what level of the card that it's on. In this one, I'm not mistaken, that was in the prelims, if I'm not mistaken, right?
Yes.
And the main event was Marias versus Corey Sandhagen, and even that was very good fight overall, really well matchup. But this is what I mean by if you miss the prelims, sometimes you miss these shooting stars until things like social media and Twitter put them out. Now, Ben Askren coming over against Jorge, I know I keep going back to that example, but he had come from one championship and he was undefeated. And he was really talking a lot of smack during that time. And Jorge Masvidal just had his hands behind his back this whole time. Like, that's kind of cute. Yeah, I like the way you say that. And did anybody ever dream that little trick that he gave? He tried doing the same one with Nate Diaz, but Nate Diaz was not stupid. He's like, I know what you're about to pull. Now that I've moved out of position, all right, let's see who can push the distance here, who can actually get inside at that point. And so with Buckley, it's one of those, once you pull this off, yes, the bar has been set, but I don't think you're ever going to see anything like this pulled off as successfully ever again. But if you do, it could happen in another entity like Bellator or One Championship or even a Legacy Fighting Alliance. It could happen on some of theirs, but once again, it's just one of these, it's become an anomaly and in a very short period of time.
Well, I used to watch, like one of my favorite shows to watch on television was The Ultimate Fighter, and watch, how they'd go through, match after match after match to win that show. And so that's how I'm really familiar with a lot of the names that you say, because I mean, I was never one to go crazy and buy every pay-per-view that they have or anything like that. But, there'd be certain matchups that I'd be like, I have to see this, and I'd pay for it. And then, like, a lot of times what I do, we have ESPN Plus. And
sure,
to those of you who don't mind watching the next day and don't necessarily want to watch that night for, $100, you get the same stuff on ESPN Plus the next day. So, I end up, my wife here doesn't really love boxing or MMA. So I tend to like watch it on my own at like, 4:30 in the morning when I wake up. And
it's like a man thing.
And and I can fast forward through the boring parts that are just like, especially the matches that you just go, yawn, why were they even on this card? But there's so many guys I don't know their name, and I know this guy's name now for one reason and one reason only. He shocked me with that. And like, to your point, like you're obviously a very deeply informed, hardcore MMA fan. And so for you, you've got all this history that's inside, you know a lot. But for those of us who don't know a lot, all we see is the bro kicked the other bro who grabbed his leg and made it look like, now you're in trouble. I've got your leg and I'm going to snap it in half. And he went, oh, really? Well, here, let me show you my other leg. Whack. And then the other, like I said, then the other guy's, the look on his face, because I mean, he obviously went right to sleep, but the look on his face in the video was like, what the hell just happened? Good night.
Night.
Oh, she has something to say. Reminded you of what?
I saw in a movie once where the dude had a sword and the other dude took it away from him. And then he was like, allow me to introduce you to my other sword. And then he stabbed him in the face. It reminds me of that.
There's another movie that happened in too, if it helps. Go back and watch Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 2, The Secret of the Ooze. I'm not kidding you. The kid that gets inside with the Foot Clan, he's doing the training. He does the same move that happened with Buckley, except in this one, he waves at the guy with his big glove and spins back around. So that's all in fun. That's all in. That movie was nowhere near the level of the original indie, sensation that was TMNT. But, it was lighthearted and fun. But I've been wanting to bring you in here, Torya, because it looks like to me we have a tie-in. He's wanting to start a reality rant on this podcast. And no wonder he's so fascinated with the reality TV. He's been watching The Ultimate Fighter. It's fighters mixed with reality TV and making it work. No wonder.
It's definitely a him thing. Trashy reality TV of any variety is his thing.
Well, I'm glad you brought up reality TV because, the reality rant, in my opinion, could be its own show. And it would be an extremely funny show because Torya does not hold back with her opinions of the people on these shows. But what she doesn't seem to completely 100% grasp, and now I'm going to correct myself here. She grasps it because we've had private conversations about it. But on the air, when it's actually being discussed, for whatever reason, she says, those people are so stupid. And I say, well, exactly. It's why I watch it. Because they're stupid. And
trust me, I grasp that.
And you sit there and you say to yourself, what's the next dumb thing they can do? Oh, no one could possibly top that dumb thing. Oh, wait, that person just topped that dumb thing. Oh, wait, no one could possibly top that dumb thing. And it's like, to me, it's like when people slow down on the road to look at an accident on the other side of the road. They're not looking at the accident to see, oh, gee, how badly was the front end damaged? They're looking for blood. Let's be real. They're looking for blood. They're looking for someone to be hurt. And I watch the reality shows because I want to see like, well, what crazy ass thing are they going to do next? And it's humorous to me. And at the same time, then I say to myself, all right, how much of this is actually scripted out for them and that they just have to do it this way? And it makes me laugh. It just makes me laugh. And I like to laugh. So it's why I watch it. And then sometimes like some of the shows have attractive women on them, and that's okay. I can get by with watching an attractive woman once in a while. I live with one. So,
maybe if you're going to make this reality rant, what would be kind of cool on my end, if you want to run with this idea, if you're going to continue or do reality rants, what you could pull is some of the crazier guys that were from the Ultimate Fighter that thought they were hot stuff and didn't even make it into the UFC, or they didn't have illustrious careers afterwards, but they were certainly somebody to watch during the season. Maybe somebody like June Browning, or maybe Gabe Rudiker, or even Julian Lane, because I had UFC fighter Sam Alvey on my show. He was on the season of Julian going, let me bang, bro. Yeah, maybe you can go into something like that if you're like, hey, to get your spill of MMA, but also get your reality in there. It seems like a win-win if you're going to take it that direction.
Are you going to do those episodes with him? Because I know nothing about any of that.
Now we decided to we created it as like a special, I don't want to say segment because it isn't like something that we only do. We devote a whole episode to it. But we also decided
I'm not sure with all bosses, if God period gives me the ability to, then I guess I won't turn away the opportunity. But Supreme Boss Leader, we shall see.
We're on a voice only podcast, so I'm going to have to point out something. We're using a software that you can get this software. We get a little bit of money if you go there at elitesquadcast.com. And what we do is we have these 3 windows and we can see each other in the window. It makes it look like you're in a studio together, which is really nice. I like, he had his video off originally and I had him turn his video on because I like to see his facial responses to things. And it helps me know how far to push a joke. But now they've got this new feature where you can like keep renaming yourself. It used to be you could only name yourself in the green room, but now you can name yourself over and over again. And so Torya and I have been having a battle, and I'm not sure what she just put on the screen, but whatever. Mine is God period, and so that's
mine is God period backwards.
Well, that would fit. You are
backwards. See, that's clever, and you've been included in this conversation now, Torya. There you go.
But here's the thing: the reality rant aspect of this series of shows is just meant to, Brian, what do I always tell you? What have we discovered by doing the nightly rant about people? I want you to say it because, you're a nice guy. You never say anything mean. So this is your chance to say something mean.
What you've discovered is that when you give people a chance in the beginning, but when they slap your hand away, then that kind of opens up the floodgates for you guys to go into your sarcastic points of view. In other words, you might have a decent political discussion with somebody, but as time goes on, am I being cut off?
No,
I'm not used to this.
Torya, what have we learned? What have we learned over 365 episodes? What have we learned?
I think what Brian was trying to say in the most ridiculously nice way possible is that people are selfish sons of bitches.
They're stupid. People are stupid. Okay, so
and there you have it.
Keep with the theme of people are stupid and now apply it to reality television. And now you understand why it's a perfect fit.
And now Brian's name is Why Can't We Be Civil?
But here's
some diplomacy over here in the Blockhead Nation.
But here's the thing about stupid people in reality TV. I have my limit. There are these 2 ladies that are on one of the shows we watch who have a spin-off show, and I will not watch it because they are the dumbest human beings on earth. A rock could be on the screen for an hour. I'd rather watch The Rock, not the Rock guy, but a rock on the screen, an actual rock, rather than these 2 ladies. I cannot stand those 2 ladies. What?
I have an idea.
What?
We both hate them just as much, those 2 people. We despise them the same level. We should just turn on the recorder and watch an episode of it and just release our commentary on how freaking dumb they are.
I have a better idea.
That's kind of what people on YouTube do already. I mean, why not coattail what's already working? I mean, Google Analytics will love you for that.
I have a better idea. You watch it, and then we'll talk about it, and I'll talk about it without even watching it because I'm good at that.
And the ref takes a point away.
Well, he doesn't have such a terrible idea there. You could actually record it, and then during the episode, we could play like a few minutes of the show, let them hear it. We'd probably get sued by TLC, but that's okay. I'm ready for that one. That's all right. But we'll
have to act it out. You can't just play the recording. You have to act it out.
But then we can make fun of what we see on the screen, and I think it would be super hilarious. And that show, I bet you, would lend itself to that because it's probably, I don't know if it's a 30-minute show or a 60-minute show, but it's 100% stupidity. And there would be no lacking of humor from our side because I think Brian knows we're probably the 2 most sarcastic individuals on earth. And we somehow found each other to get married. Like that, I don't get that.
This one woman has Italian sausages for lips. How is it not the funniest thing you've ever seen?
I don't know why, but the episode of Seinfeld just came to my mind where they're making all the sausages. It's time we take it up.
No soup for you. No soup for you. Yeah, it's just, I don't know. The reality rant aspect of this podcast has become interesting to me because, quite honestly, people, there are times where we'll have 2 episodes in a row of it or 3 episodes in a row. And then there's going to be times where you're not going to hear from us for 3 months. It just depends on how irritated we are by what we saw. The more irritated we are by what we saw, the more likely we are to talk about it. Now, what I'd really like for the reality rant is to get some of these morons onto the show, because then we can ask them, hey, bro, what were you thinking? Why did you do that? And actually, maybe they'll tell us what actually happened. I don't know, but it's kind of like, you have a show that mixes peanuts and MMA. Now, people, if you like either one, you're going to like his show. But he mixes peanuts with MMA. And I'm telling you, if you ask Brian questions about peanuts, you heard that rant earlier, like about 27-minute long rant about MMA and the best knockout and all that. You'd get the same thing about peanuts because he's knowledgeable about that topic. And he has the most knowledge about that topic than anyone I've ever seen. He's passionate. That's why I like Brian so much, because he reminds me of me in that we're both, when we have a topic that we like, we immerse ourselves into that topic and learn everything there is to learn about it. And I don't think Brian says to himself, I'm going to learn everything there is about peanuts and MMA. It just happens because he likes those things. And that's because I know that's what happens with me. I don't sit down and say, I'm going to learn everything about topic X. I just go, oh, topic X is kind of fun. Let me read something else about it. Else about it. But I think
that's the story of how we began podcasting.
Just like how you have the MMA connection and you've brought MMA fighters on your show, we have the reality TV connection. We'd like to bring reality TV people on the show. So, hey, anybody out there listening, if you know any of these fools that are on a reality TV show, hook us up. I'm actually going to start going through their Instagrams, and they all have like email addresses at the bottom. And as long as it's not to a management company, I'm going to email them and be like, hey, you're our favorite reality TV star. Could you come on our show? We've been fighting. Here's the thing about 2020. You're going to laugh about this. And yes, I'm going off right now. Adam Carolla. I am the Adam Carolla of this show, and Torya is Dr. Drew. And
is it because I have my phone out? Because that's rude.
Dr. Drew. Put your phone away, Drew. Sound familiar? Put your phone away, Drew. Are you paying attention, Drew? Drew, better pay attention. But where's the dog, Drew? The dog's not bothering like usual. Anyway, he said he would go on any podcast as a guest. He didn't care if they had only one listener. He would go on their show because he believes in supporting podcasts. Well, man, I must have sent this guy 10,000 tweets in the year 2020 saying, yo, Adam, we got a spot for you anytime you want it. You said you'd come on a show. It doesn't matter if we have one listener. We have 2, so we're good. Come on the show. We got double the listeners you're looking for. He doesn't come on the show. What the heck is wrong with this guy? Like, I'm serious. The next time they have like the Carolla family barbecue or one of those things where you can go in person, I'm paying for the ticket. I'll pay for yours too if you want, Torya, if you're going to go. But if you're not going to go, I'm not going to pay for it. And I'm going to go there and I'm going to walk up to him and I'm going to say, bro, you said you'd go on shows if they had one listener. We have 2, so come on our show. I'm not going to tell one of them is
the one quote that keeps coming to my mind. I'm not even a huge Office fan, but it's just there on the edge of my tongue. I want to look at you and go, why are you the way that you are? But I get the rhetoric here. I get the allure. I really do. Since you had your chance to vent something on your show, well, YFB is going to take a minute and vent something on his, because your focus has been Jordan Arbinger and Adam Carolla, which, again, these are juggernauts in the podcasting world. But I'm going to throw one out. Chael Sonnen. I'm not particularly happy with you because you did slide my question. I have been following the show since 2016, and I remember very well that you had a fighter that you discussed. You did not disclose who it was, and I want to know who it was. I sent you a video asking you, who was the fighter that wore the Wizinator inside of the cage? Allow me to explain. We have a fighter that's going in. He finds out that he has taken a supplement. Well, he's taken a supplement. He's got to fight. He knows that he's not going to urinate clean. So he goes on the internet. He discovers something called a Wizinator, which means you can wear this and have urine inside of it, and you can squeeze it, and apparently it looks real, and you can fill up a urine sample. Well, the problem is they don't test him before he goes to the cage. He wears the Wizinator inside of the octagon. At some point when he's facing the guy, they go to the ground. The Wizinator breaks, and it is all over the canvas. And at some point when he looks up after the fight's over, whether he won or lost, there's the guy that's there ready to take his test. And he goes, hey, man, I'm hurt. I'm going to the hospital. He goes, I'll follow you there. They get to the hospital. Now, at this point, he really does have to go to the bathroom. and he's looking for an out. Somewhere in there, when he's getting very, very uncomfortable, he kind of throws a Hail Mary and he says, listen, I'm feeling sick. I'm going to go use the bathroom. And he says, I'm coming with you. He goes, absolutely not. That is disgusting. That's not what I'm talking about. I have to go have maybe a number 3, if you will. If I have to actually use the restroom, I'll call you. When he gets in the stall, he texts his buddy, says, bring the van up right now. Somewhere in there, he waits in the stall. A van pulls up. As soon as he does, this guy busts out of the bathroom, runs out the fire emergency exit, goes down the pole, gets into the van, and speeds away like it's a movie. To this day, nothing happened to this fighter. And I don't know why, but Chael, whenever I ask him through Twitter or through his fan page, he will not tell me or anybody else that's listened who was this fighter. Now, if he could just come out and say, well, I'm not allowed to disclose it, that's all I need to know. But if I'm getting completely ghosted, now I've got a problem. So, Chael Sonnen, I'm putting it out there now. Come on the Your Favorite Blockhead Network, come to my podcast, or leave me at least a message somewhere in the kids call Twitter and tell me who was the fighter that had this situation. And because if you can disclose what happened with John Jones hiding under the cage to be truth, then why are you staying away from this one? Who are you trying to defend? And there you have it.
That's the part he doesn't want to tell you, is who he's trying to defend.
Believe me, that's what's going on up here, buddy. And at this point, after 4 years, I want to know, who was it? Was he a Team Quest member? Is he somebody that's no longer in MMA? Was he a coach, cornerman? What is he? But we now know that John Jones officially, because Israel Adesanya rubbed him the wrong way, ruffled his feathers, he came out and said, yeah, you're right about that. I did hide from USADA. But now that we've got this guy, who's this other one? People have forgotten about that. YFB doesn't forget.
You never forget anything, I can tell. So here's the thing. We've gone on forever. I love having you on. I appreciate having you on. We're going to have you on again before the end of 2020 because, well, that's what we do. And we're going to make it so that we've had only 2 guests, but one of them appeared at least three or 4 times. And I think this is your 3rd, right, this year? Yeah, it's your 3rd.
Something like that. I tip my humble hat to you, Torya. I didn't mean to start a 5-alarm fire in your apartment over there from all the heat I just generated.
So it's okay.
But I appreciate your time. Yes.
Fire, so.
It's okay. Her hair's on fire. It's all good. So
Touché.
You can find this guy at yourfavoriteblockhead.com. You can find him on, what is your Instagram handle? Is it just YFB?
It's actually Your Favorite Blockhead, if I'm not mistaken. Okay. Instagram.com and / Your Favorite Blockhead.
All right, you can find him there. Follow him. He likes to post the same picture over and over and over and over.
Usually, yeah.
And over.
Except for the one from the Cadillac Ranch where I left my insignia on the back.
When I first started following you, I started asking myself, why does Instagram keep showing me the same picture? Why? Then I started reading the captions, and I was like, aha, now I know why Instagram shows the same picture, because the guy posts the same picture. But that's all good, too. So before we go, I want to say that we over here at Yogi's Podcast Network are planning for 2021 to be the greatest year we've ever seen in our podcast network. And it's only with friendships like we've forged with you that's even possible. We know that, we're only able to put out just so much content, and then we need other people to help with that. So, you got Dr. Drew over here. She's, busy eating and, playing with her phone, changing her name. We got her over there. I don't see any dogs. I'm not sure where they are.
We have the Winosaurus sitting over there in his office with his purple hair.
I don't whine. I'd never whine ever.
Whining right now.
And then we have Brian over here. He's like all I can say on his shirt is it says greatest, and he's the greatest guest, because he's the
greatest farter.
When this guy comes on,
it is. No
matter
this
how
has
hard
been diminished a little bit, but.
no matter how hard we try to make the show 100% about him, he doesn't let us do that. And I think that's kind of admirable, actually, because it is his chance to shine, but he fits in so well with us. It's not even funny. And my friend, I've said this to you many, many times before, but I think that 2021 is the year where we're going to get to shake hands in person and break bread, because we've known you for too long. We consider you a friend. Not even kidding. We consider you a friend. You come up in conversation a lot, like in a good way, by the way. You come up in conversation a lot. When we talk about our best episodes, I'm about to update the sidebar. You're going to probably be in there twice, I would bet. It's just...
Can we break the bread on his head?
We've never been tempted to like ban you from the show like some people. We want to keep that number at 1.
Yeah, I've always been on the other side of the ban hammer. That's kind of nice. Yeah. But, the feeling's mutual. I just don't want to cut you off. It's one of those, hey, the truth is when I come on, it's kind of one of those, it's a 3-way between all 3 of us, this little tripod we got going. And in reality, even though you give me the floor a lot, it's kind of one of those, this is still the Nightly Rant with Mike and Torya. I'm getting a little bit of a side voice on this one. But, I enjoy coming on it. I enjoy learning a thing or two, too, because, I believe in the 3 E's: to educate, to entertain, and to edify. And if all 3 of those can happen amongst us in an episode, then so be it. That's the same way I feel about the YFB network.
And I believe in 4 E's: educate, entertain, edify, and eat. There she is.
Absolutely.
So before we go, and we're about to go, tell us, people, what you think of our new podcast graphics. They're out there. This is the 2nd episode that the podcast graphics will exist. No, I'm not going to be a psycho and go back and change all the other graphics because that's just changing history and we don't want to do that. But please tell us what you think and go to your favorite podcast listening tool and give us a 5-star rating. And if you're not going to give us a 5-star rating, don't even bother. I'm just kidding. I always say that. You can give us, we used to go to this car wash, and at the very, very end, you drive in it. And at the very, very end, it had a sign up that said, give us a review on social media, unless it's going to be a bad one, and then skip it. So,
as Incubus once said, the graphics that you have up now are stellar. You are stellar.
Thank you, man.
Very pleased with what I'm seeing at this point. Very good stuff. Go support the Nightly Rant. Go support Yogi's Podcast Network. There's my shameless plug.
He likes it because it's closer to Chuck's shirt. See, Chuck has a yellow shirt.
Exactly.
And the image is closer to Chuck's shirt. See? The only thing you got wrong. The only thing you got wrong is you didn't do the ziggity zackety black thing in the middle, but that's okay. So anyway, thanks Brian for being on. Thanks, Brian, for being on. Please do not show cartoons of Muhammad because I don't want to hear from your wife that you were beheaded. That would be awful. At least wait. And if you're going to do that, at least wait until after we meet you in person because we really want to meet you in person. And we don't want you to have
We'll stick with comics of kids walking to class with a plunger in hand.
That'll work. That'll work. Comics with plungers works. And I love the plunger story, by the way. That is classic. It's like the people that you go to the front counter and you're like, do you have a bathroom? Yeah, you need a key. And then they hand you like this key that's hanging from like a giant baseball bat. Thanks.
Or a spoon.
Now
a giant spoon.
Now everybody knows I'm going to use the restroom. Thanks a lot. But that's probably.
I want to know what people do with that spoon.
So with that,
I told him if you ever use that plunger, don't you dare bring it back in this room. I've got replacements. Thank you very much. You're not a custodian anyway. This is just proof that hey, Mr. Little's kid's going to the bathroom. There's no denying to and from. I've got nurse passes. I got office passes. That's for one destination only, never to be used. And for 6 years, knock on wood, it's still usable.
That's great. With that, I'm really tired.
So as far as you know.
I am super tired. What does that mean?
On that really, really, really disgusting note, good night, everyone.
Hasta bye-bye.
You are stellar.
Thank you for listening to the Nightly Rant.
If you enjoyed the show, please give us a 5-star rating on Apple Podcasts or Google Play.
If you didn't enjoy the show, please just ignore that previous request for a rating.
This has been a Yogi's Podcast Network production.